My colleague Rohit Sharma, incidentally, the first journalist who interviewed Sergio Gore when he was announced as the US Ambassador to India. And in that conversation yesterday, Sergio Gore also mentioned that. And Rohit, we've been at it through the night looking at the fine print. So it's early morning in India, late night already there for you. Give us details. How did this change come about and what this means for the United States?
I think, everybody that I've talked to is talking about Ambassador Gore and how he served as this catalyst, along with two other things. The fact that you'd mentioned, Gaurav, about the EU-India deal. Secretary Besant, he went on a Sunday show 2 days ago, and he talked about the fact that, look, the US put India's relationship at risk by putting those 25% punitive tariffs. And then what does it get in return? The Europeans do not put tariffs on India, even after President asking them multiple times. And then it was buying that refined oil from India, essentially funding the war for Russia. So I think that was something, a realization that also happened in the last couple of weeks in the US. But I think the game changer in this case is Ambassador Sergio Gore. He is a very close confidant of President Trump. He was in the first administration, stayed throughout with President Trump. After President Trump left office in 2020, comes back, and then he's chosen for this assignment. He spends a lot of time here with the Indian ambassador. In fact, invited the Indian ambassador in Washington, D.C. to Mar-a-Lago a few times, and then goes to India, and within less than 4 weeks is able to deliver on such a big deal that, again, people can call it father of all deals, daddy deal, whatever you want to call it, but a massive, massive deal. So I think a couple of
So
factors in there.
Definitely,
Definitely,
we're still waiting for the fine print, but the daddy of all deals and your conversations with Sergio Gore, it's amazing that conversation that India Today was having, we were all having with him late yesterday on air, where he said, okay, he saw the India Today magazine cover, he liked it, he clicked a picture, he sent it to Donald Trump liked it, and he put it out on his social media platform. So the role that India Today played in the mover and shaker form. But describe, one, his relationship with President Trump and the role that he played. Why is he being described as the catalyst for this deal right now?
Well, as I said, somebody very, very, very highly respected and trusted by President Trump, somebody who stayed by his side. He's pretty young. He's not, usually you see ambassadors who are in their 50s and close to 60s, pretty young, pretty dynamic, had his task cut out. In fact, when I met him at his reception at Kennedy Center, I spoke to him on the record, off the record, and he was pretty confident. I remember him telling me that, look, things will be back on track. The president understands how important India is. We understand how important the relationship with India is, and we'll find a way to get back. And that's exactly what they've done. So I think all in all, he has president's ear. He is somebody who can call the president of the United States, makes things happen, and is actually proven by essentially having this deal done in a way. We still have to wait for the fine print, but that 18% number, Gaurav, it's a big, big, massive victory for both the nations.
It indeed is. And stay with me for a moment, Rohit. Let me also bring Karishma into this conversation. Karishma, when it comes to emerging markets, India has the lowest at 18%. There are emerging markets that are at 25%, 30%. There are some which are much higher. But what do you make of this, finally, this deal happening? Heaving a sigh of relief, good for Indian exports?
Gaurav, absolutely. In fact, if you look at Southeast Asia region, you'll see 18% India and overall in the Asia Pacific, with other markets who hold the major global supply chain movement, be it Vietnam, which actually was our alternative for textiles, or Indonesia, or China, which of course stands no big question on why everybody has been talking about the China plus one policy. Now, India definitely has a big advantage with the 18% tariff because it makes the whole game go. It makes a big change in the whole game of how now the movement of goods and services could happen and how it could impact the global supply chain geopolitically. India is also an emerging market with a lot of key sectors. For example, take textiles, which are labor-intensive sectors like footwear, gems and jewelry, our marine exports to the US, which have been the highest, and despite the 50% tariff, if you look at numbers, we were still holding the fort with close to $6.65 billion trade on an average basis each month, which is not very different from what it was before the 50% tariffs were imposed, which means that our demand in the market continues to grow, and now an 18% tariff will only make it better and bigger.
Absolutely. It'll only make it bigger and better. Like Rohit and I were just discussing, what brought about this sudden change? Was it in the works that, Sergio Gore has arrived in India? It will happen. Many had argued that since he's already here, Karishma, and it's been a year since Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit, was it on the cards, or was it because of the India-EU trade deal?
To be honest, Gaurav, that this is all a part of the whole major pie. Everything adds to the slice because a lot of developments, a lot of milestones have happened in the last few months. For example, let me just straight go back to the timeline, the month of April in year 2025, when the whole conversation on tariff had erupted one fine day, and India was then standing at a first mover advantage. Jumped to 5 rounds of negotiation in 4 months, which was the highest. But because of the sticking point, we were stuck in the month of August. However, a lot of developments since then have happened. One fine point which I'd like to raise is that India did not budge to the sticking point, especially on our sensitive sectors pertaining to agriculture. And while we await the fine print, sources have hinted me that it is a fair and a balanced deal, which in fact India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has been reiterating, which means that we have not yet budged on sectors that have mattered to us. Definitely the EU trade deal has cushioned the whole behavior and the whole attitude between
Absolutely, because India's red lines were very clear. It's being described as the greatest of all deals. And stay with me, Karishma, stay with me.